Hello everyone and welcome to the Voice of Pharmacy show. I'm your host Sharif Gorgi, and in today's episode we will be tackling a very important subject which could have a significant impact on how pharmacy is practiced and operated in Ontario. That subject is the proposed regulatory amendments to the Ontario Drug Benefit Act and to the Drug Interchangeability and Dispensing Fee Act, which the government is currently considering. These proposed amendments would basically lift the ban on private label generic drugs in Ontario, which would give a very clear advantage to certain large pharmacy chains over small independent pharmacies, particularly if the cap on commercial terms continues to be upheld. So I want to be very clear that this is not a corporate versus independent matter. Actually, all we want to do from an independent pharmacy perspective is to ensure that policymakers are properly informed and educated on the unintended consequences of this bill, so that they have the full picture before them when they make their decision. So to that end, a number of pharmacy groups and banners representing over 1,600 pharmacies in Ontario have come together to ensure that our voice is clearly heard. Collectively, we've put together a position statement that clearly articulates our recommendations and our concerns to the government regarding the proposed regulatory changes. With that, I would like to welcome my guests today, Billy Chung, Ben Shinoda, Dean Miller, who are all part of the coalition formed to advocate on behalf of independent pharmacies. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Sharif.
Billy, to get us started, can you provide us with just some of the high-level details on the proposed regulatory amendments that we're talking about and why they would pose some concerns to small businesses?
I'll try to keep it fairly succinct in terms of what the situation is. We essentially have the government looking to reverse a legislation that prevented companies from having generic private label medications in Ontario, which is something unique. It doesn't exist in other provinces, and it's just a limitation in Ontario right now. The situation with that is the fact that with private label, what it means that only specific companies and organizations, and generally it's larger corporations, are able to take advantage of private label generics.
Simply because they have the volume to
volume,
justify that?
Infrastructure, support, like you need to have all that to make it happen. And it's something that independent pharmacies aren't able to do. You need, without that infrastructure, you can't do that. And the reason why it's so significant is that it provides those companies that can do it a significant financial advantage over independents that can't, and it essentially puts an unlevel playing field in the Ontario marketplace.
But the significant financial advantage is one piece of it. You know, the other piece is more about controlling and directing, practice in the market. I think that's really where most of the concern with small independent pharmacies are.
What happens then is that financial advantage can result in a bunch of different things that affect independent pharmacy, everything from job losses and closings and things that we've talked about in the past. But additionally, you also have a situation in the marketplace where the generics could be affected with respect to supply issues as well as pricing. We can even see prices go up as a result of less number of players in the marketplace.
Well, interesting you mentioned about prices going up, because there are a lot of misinformation out there in the media that actually talk about commercial terms and rebates or kickbacks as they call them, and their claims are that they result in increasing the generic drug prices. The fact is this is completely false. Those practices are in other provinces, and the generic drug prices over there are not any less than they are in Ontario. Ben, can you provide any further clarification on that?
Absolutely. There's two things we have to put on the table. Number one is the pricing mechanism. Number two is the commercial relation between the generic provider and the retailer. The prices are set by the government, so the consumer and the patient are completely protected. There's no impact of the kickback or rebate as people are saying.
And they're set by the government as part of a tiered framework.
There's a tier framework, depends on how many generics are available for this medication. If it is one generic available, there is a certain price for that, 75% of brand. If it is two, there is about 50% of that. If there's more than three, this is anywhere between 10 to 18%. But the proof to the no effect of the rebate on the prices of generic is in different provinces. So if you look at Alberta, Manitoba, British Columbia, there is allowance for rebate. Commercial term is there. Commercial relation between manufacturer and provider is there, but the prices are set and exactly the same prices like Ontario. So there's no impact on prices.
And those business practices have also been in Ontario for the longest time. They've only been reversed or made illegal under the previous Liberal government.
Yes, that's true. That's true. The commercial relation between the provider and the retailer have been prohibited by the Liberal government for certain reasons. But actually now with the new government, I think everything is clear that this government is pro small business, and we are a small business in reality. Yes, we run pharmacy, but in reality we are a small business.
Well, I think you summed it up really well here, is that community pharmacy at the end of the day is a retail business, and we cannot be discussing the practice piece without the economics piece. They both go hand in hand. The concern we see with the commercial terms piece is that it is red tape regulation that is completely unnecessary. It does not impact what taxpayers pay for their medication. It does not cost the government any more for generic prices. This is the message that keeps getting repeated in the media, and it keeps picked up by the public, and it is completely false. And the fact is, this is purely a business relationship between a generic manufacturer and a pharmacy buyer. And it is a business relationship that, as you said, is existent in all other provinces. And it's also...
It exists in all other businesses.
Well, I was going to say, exactly, yeah, and
Yeah.
exists. So for the fact that the government is trying to control it, or has been trying to control it, it has shown that it has not been an effective regulation, and that's really one of the main reasons we're asking the government to revisit that, especially in the light of the private label regulation.
And it's 180 degrees from the rest of the country. So, that's why we've gathered together. Well, I think Sharif, I think everyone's probably seen our statement, seen our letter, and it's very much about a level playing field. And we look at the rest of the country who has some consistency. The commercial terms, the cap that exists here in Ontario doesn't exist elsewhere. We've got situations in Alberta, BC, just name the province, and you've got a situation where private label still exists, but you've also got this open market, I guess is the best way to put it. That's what we're trying to achieve here in Ontario, and I think it's nothing more than that, right? It's a simple positive message out there to this government, and this government is new for us. One of the big differences I think between 2009 and 10 is that we already had a track record with the previous government. We went in talking about different things. This is, there's lots of people advocating on this file, but we wanted to kind of fill in a gap that really wasn't, I guess, talking about independent pharmacy. And the power of the group that we've assembled here is one of over 1,600 pharmacies here in Ontario, all kind of talking about the plight of the independent. And we just want to make sure that is explained to this brand new government that is very pro small business. They're very pro labor. They're very pro, let's make sure that small communities and healthcare in small communities is preserved. And, that's really our key messages. There's nothing more than that. It's a positive campaign to educate the current PC government here in Ontario about independent pharmacy.
Absolutely. I think it's. You mentioned a few things that I just would like to highlight and reinforce it. The fact that this is a very positive message that we are taking to the government. We have no intention in making this a fight. This is not a corporate versus independent thing. So,
independent pharmacy business is unique, and that's really that's what this discussion is about. We've gone to the government in the past and talked about patient care issues. Ultimately there is some patient care impact, but over time it's been a different pharmacy message than we're delivering today. Today's message is more about small business than it is about sort of the impact on a pharmacist or a patient.
But it's about making sure that there's an equality in terms of how the business runs in Ontario, right? So when we talk about that inequality risk, is that you look at the other provinces, it's balanced. There's a competitive marketplace for all the small businesses in pharmacy and all the businesses in pharmacy. It's a fair marketplace. In Ontario, we had a certain marketplace. It was changed through legislation, through various different mechanisms over the years. And then right now, the government wants to look at reversing one of the pieces, which doesn't allow for that equality. And what we're saying is that you can't just take one thing away. You need to fix various pieces to make sure that it stays equality. And it's an open competitive environment where it's not small business versus corporations. It's just making sure, guess what? Pharmacy business, everybody has a fair chance.
Absolutely. Like, all we're saying that if you're going to be bringing one of those pieces back, then you have to bring the other one as well, because
Exactly.
like you said, if you do one without the other, then you have a significant impact in the marketplace. And I don't think that they are fully aware about that. And that's really the main reason why that we've come together, to have put our statement together. And it's like you said, it's more to educate, and to make sure that they understand the unintended consequences, that bill could have had.
Can I just explain something very simple for the viewers who are not 100% familiar with the private label? The private label will allow the companies or the group who are going to produce private label to have lower cost of drugs. And then the price is set by the government. So if you have a lower cost of goods and the set price, the difference will be your profit. So if you have lower cost, your profit will be higher. If the independent pharmacy, which is a small business, will not have the same advantage from the government that they can deal directly with the manufacturer to try to
Lower the cost.
as much as possible, then we'll be at commercial disadvantage. We will not be able to continue in business. And this is true for any business, not only pharmacy. So we are...
And Ben, I think, it's safe to say as well that, there's people that have looked at this issue, well, is this going to change prices? Is it going to make them higher? It's going to make them lower?
Not at all. No
Right,
impact on the
exactly.
prices, because we're talking about the difference between a fixed price and cost. And that difference has to be as equal as possible between the big organizations and the independent small business.
But I think, Sharif, it's safe to say that, that statement or letter, the efforts of all of us together, I mean, it talks about a very important message. And I don't want to sort of belittle it. In fact, I want to stress it even more, is that, it's a positive educational effort on our part with a government that we have already seen has some receptivity to our message. Small business, jobs, things like that are very, very important to this government. And we feel our role in this is to make sure that they know all of that and they know all about us and the people we're representing, right? Which is the pharmacists in Ontario, the independent pharmacists in Ontario.
It's very important that we have consistent message, all of us, because the government need to hear that this is the message we would like to have. And as simple as the message is, that the possibility that the government will listen to it and understand that this could be an unintended consequences, is very important.
We also have a solution for them, which is fairly simple. It doesn't cost them any money. It doesn't cost the system any money. So that's been presented, and it's part of that message. So it's, if you proceed with the private label, then guess what? You got to look at the commercial terms and removing the restrictions on that, and then the problem gets solved.
Absolutely, and I think this is one of the things we're trying to reinforce. First, that we need to have a consistent message out there, which we do, but also the fact is, unlike what is being repeated and picked up by a lot of people in the media, this solution does not cost the government anything, does not cost taxpayers anything. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Dean, it's clear that by coming together as independents, we were able to bring our voice forward in a very structured and in a very clear manner. From your perspective, how important is it to bring the small business approach to the government? And do you think that there could have been, or are there any other channels where that voice could have been heard?
Sharif, it's a great question, because I think, in the pharmacy world, we have our advocacy bodies, but as smaller independents, we don't, and that's really the the rationale about bringing us all together, right? We fell into sort of a very unique spot where we wanted to make sure our message was communicated out to government, if it trickles down to the public, just to know that there's an independent message embedded in there.
Independent business,
Independent
independent small
business,
business.
Yeah.
These are changes are impacting business. They're not impacting the profession. It happened to be that we are pharmacists running small business.
Absolutely, and I think the intention has never been to duplicate any effort, that
Yeah.
has or might have been in place.
Exactly, Sharif. And you said one important thing. Is there another way that we could have done this better? And Ben, you talked about it, right? I mean, we didn't go out to reach out to independent pharmacies across Ontario to deliver the message. We brought together all of us to ensure that we got a good, clean, concise message about our business, and we've said it a few times today, and I think it's probably the number one message that we can leave everybody with today is that this isn't necessarily a pharmacy issue. It's a pharmacy business issue, and it's a pharmacy business issue focused specifically on independence, and I think that's why as long as we continue down this path, positive messaging, educating a government that is willing to listen, at least we all think at this point in our tenure and our relationship with this government, that they're willing to listen, and we have no reason to believe that they're not. So the more we can talk about it, the better it is. And who knows? I mean, we may call on others, the pharmacists of Ontario, the independent pharmacists of Ontario, to do more. But for the time being, we're pretty happy with our message. We've had a couple of very, very positive discussions, and there's nothing in my mind that leads me to believe that we're not on the right path here.
And it's good to have pharmacists who are passionate and who want to be involved. And I think that we've shown that by coming together in a structured way and in an organized way, we were able to bring a positive message that clearly articulates what our concerns are, and also bring solutions. Perfect. Gentlemen, any other final thoughts or comments that you would like to share?
I think we covered it.
I think we covered it.
We have full belief that the PC government for the people is a government that stands for social and fiscal responsibilities. It's a government that cares about doing the right thing. It's a government that values small business and its contribution to the economic development of Ontario. At the end, I would like to reiterate that this is not a corporate versus independent battle, but it's about doing the right thing for the profession. And we all have the responsibility to do something about it. To be empowered to do something, we have to first be effectively engaged. And to be effectively engaged, we have to be properly informed. And that's really the purpose of the show, is to inform, engage, and empower. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you in the next episode.